The psychotic person's beliefs are intense. They drive their action. It may start off as a relatively simple idea, but it evolves into a very complicated, systematic way of thinking about the world and their particular delusion.
He uses a standardized set of questions to test people.
Why is it important that all stop signs be the same color and shape? Why should you pull over when you hear a siren?
These questions not only probe whether they understand social rules, they show whether people would actually choose to follow them.
The reason why I believe they have difficulties on this test is because it requires your ability to read social situations.
People clouded by psychosis would be lower on Stone's scale because they don't understand the consequences of their actions. A chilling implication emerges from Nestor's tests. Killers who are not compelled by psychosis, but who have perfectly rational minds laced with bad intent.
The second group tended to reject social rules, yet when I gave them picture arrangement, they were able to intuitively grasp the situations and put those cards in the proper sequence.
The group who put the cards in the right order but still chose to kill are the ones Nestor may consider truly bad. Dr. Stone ranks these killers higher on his scale of evil because they are aware of their actions. But every killer is different. And in the case of serial killer Arthur Shawcross, determining where he falls on the scale is a decision best made after meeting him face to face.
Today I'm going to be interviewing Arthur Shawcross. These people are not like so many cigars in a cigar box, each one of which is identical to the other 49 in the box, so you don't always know what it is that you're going to get into with this particular person.
Arthur Shawcross targeted prostitutes in Rochester. Their bodies were found days, weeks later. Tossed into the woods. Strangled, and in some cases, mutilated. One headless. 3 with parts of their genitals cut out. Between 1988 and 1990, close to a dozen victims were found. It was the sick work of one man who police suspected may return to the woods. So they waited. And on January 3rd, 1990, Arthur Shawcross was caught.
The thing I'm most interested in probing him about is the why question. In other words, what prompted him to do the things that he's on record as having done?
When I realized what I did, my only thought was to get rid of her.
Forensic psychiatrist Dr. Michael Stone is going to meet serial killer Arthur Shawcross. Shawcross is convicted of killing 11 women in Rochester and is currently serving 250 years.
I'm feeling at the moment more calm and collected than I did when I got up this morning. I think I'll be able to get some useful material from him.
Morning, Jim.
Do you want the officer to stay in here with you? You want him outside the door?
Outside is all right, I think. Good morning. I'm Dr. Stone.
Yeah. And what kind of doctor are you?
Psychiatrist.
Uh-oh, I'm in trouble.
When I sit down to talk with the serial killer, I don't start with their crimes. I start with their past. I'd like to ask whether you remember a time in your life when things were okay, before they got bad. Age 3, age 4, age 5. Was there ever a good time in your life? Or was it bad from the get-go?
I can remember back to when I was about 4. When I was 4, something happened to me with my mother. And that's when I was introduced to sex. Oral sex. And at 4. Just playing, right? And then when I was about 7, she did it again. And then again, it happened when I was about 9.
Yeah.
And when I started doing the same thing with my younger sister, well, I told my mother, I said, I love my sister Jeannie more than sister and brother. right? And she tried to convince me, no, it's not going to happen. You know, that's not right. Yeah, that's when she take a butcher knife to you and grab a hold of it. And she says, if you don't behave yourself, I'll cut it off.
Were you aware that this is something that not every mom does?
I didn't even think about it. I was too scared. For a kid, you get pretty scary. That's why I was always alone. I just went out in the woods, stay away from the house as much as possible.
As a child, Arthur Shawcross seemed to live in a different and darker world. Shawcross was a loner, cut off from others, at home and in school. Yet there were times Shawcross was filled with uncontrollable rage. Arthur would fight for seemingly any reason, and as he brutalized classmates, he mimicked the sound effects he saw in comic books. Bang, pow, crack. As he grew older, his world became ever more bizarre and dangerous. He would place live bats in parked cars just to watch the drivers react in sheer terror, and set fires, once burning down a barn.
You ever had thoughts that had to do with your mom, you know, where you really felt like dicing her, you know, or making pot roast out of her?
I don't want to answer that.
Because it would be understandable, wouldn't it?
It would be understandable.
Sure it would. I mean, what you
thought, those thoughts were there.
Yeah.
You know, I wanted to hurt her in a worse way.
Yeah. It is clear to me, talking to Shawcross, that his tortured childhood contributed to his later violence.
In 1972, when Arthur Shawcross was in his 20s, he was convicted of killing a 10-year-old boy and an 8-year-old girl. He served only 15 years in prison.
Before the boy in 72, had you thought about wanting to do something like that? Or was that something that really wasn't in your mind at all and just, bingo, you know, little boy comes in your path and suddenly the idea came into your head right at that moment, out of the blue?
He kept following me. And I was going somewhere and I told him, you know, leave me alone. Quit following me. He says, I go where, you know, if I want to. I says, leave me alone. You know, go back to where you belong. He said, no. And I struck out at him and I hit him right here.
With your hand or with an object?
With my fist.
With your fist.
And down, he just dropped right there. And I left. Didn't know nothing about it until a few days later, and everybody's looking for him.
Somebody could say, well, okay, so there could have been other ways to handle it. You know?
I used to get angry at the drop of the hat.
Without a clue as to what was getting you angry? Or did you have some clues?
No.
Even later, you thought about it going back?
No. I used to get angry at the drop of the hat.
What about with the girl a couple of months later? Was there something similar about that, or was that something that you had begun to think about?
Well, I was by myself.
Yeah.
And she showed up by herself. She was on top of the bridge. She started talking. I said, what are you doing down here by yourself? You know, she said, I go where you want to go. I pulled in my fishing poles and stuff, put them back up on the bike. And I started walking upstream, right? And she comes up there with me. And I don't know, just a spur of the moment.
She was in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Right.
Yeah, but there was a little bit of sexual stuff going on with her.
Right.
Yeah.
Shawcross admitted to raping the girl before he killed her.
I was thinking about my sister Jeannie back.
Yeah, okay. Say a little bit more about that.
That's something I don't like to talk about.
If she was just in your mind, you know, kind of an equivalent symbolically of Jeannie, a person could say, well, she would be the last person you'd want to rough up.
When I realized what I did, you know, my only thought was to get rid of her.
So she couldn't tell her mom and then...
Or whoever.
Yeah, and where they come looking after you.
Right.
So it was really to kind of, so to speak, get rid of the evidence.
Right.
Yeah.
From child killer to serial murderer, Dr. Stone continues to probe the evolution of Arthur Shawcross when we come back.
I just felt numb, like I was in another state of mind.
Forensic psychiatrist Dr. Michael Stone is interviewing serial killer Arthur Shawcross. He hopes to unravel the mysteries of his evil mind. When Shawcross was in his 20s, he killed a 10-year-old boy and an 8-year-old girl. After serving 15 years for those crimes, he strangled 11 women in Rochester.
You ended up in Rochester, and at that point, some things happened, and you began doing the prostitutes, and they were grown up. They're different from these, kids 8, 10. Shawcross told me he was angry with the prostitutes, and he killed them because he found one of them had HIV.
I didn't know which one had HIV.
I see.
So I started knocking them down one at a time, all the ones that I'd been out with before.
Yeah. Did you feel that you killed all the ones that could have been the HIV one, and then you're going to stop, and that was mission accomplished, so to speak? Or was there something in you to think, if I don't get caught, I'm going to do me a few more?
No, it was only the ones I was looking for.
Were there any of those women, before you got to the point where you killed them, that you cut them or what you might call torture type stuff beforehand?
No, sir.
Yeah. Now, one of them sounded like after, I believe it was after she was dead, you can correct me if I'm wrong, when you went after some of her body parts and were munching on them and stuff. Was that just one of them?
I did that I figured I was going to die anyway, so I might as well eat that part of it, and speed it up.
Shawcross claims that eating the victims was a desperate suicide attempt. If he was going to die of HIV, then this would speed it up. But one thing doesn't make sense to me. Even though he explains his motives, he also claims he was not fully aware when he killed.
My hearing was more acute.
Your hearing?
Right.
Yeah?
And my eyesight was better, and I would sweat from here up. I don't know why.
Oh, at the time you were doing it?
Right.
At the killing?
Right. And it was like I was there, but I was over here too.
Yeah.
Like two different people.
Like observing what was happening.
Right.
Shawcross provided a revealing defense for killing the prostitutes.
People of the state of New York against Arthur Shawcross.
Before the murders, he claimed to see a bright light, slip into another personality, then black out. He actually claimed to be unaware that he killed. Dr. Stone needs to determine if Shawcross was in the throes of psychosis when he committed his crimes.
I just felt numb, like I was in another state of mind.
Yeah.
I know when I was in Dunkin' Donuts down a quarter of a block from the house, the cops would come in, they discuss it, and I'd be sitting there drinking coffee or eating a donut or talking with a few of the people I associated with, but it didn't dawn on me.
Didn't dawn on you what?
That they were talking about me.
No?
No, because I would tell Clara, be careful out there because somebody's killing everybody. But it didn't dawn on me that I was doing.
Oh. Well, that would make it sound like you were in a state of being cut off emotionally, or we call it dissociation.
Yeah.
The part of you didn't know what the other part was doing.
Or dissociate, how do you call that?
Dissociate, yeah. But now you feel your brain is united again and you can remember that, you did do these things.
I can look back at it like a movie. Too bad they can't take some kind of a machine, put it on a person's head and go back.
Arthur Shawcross claims he was in the throes of psychosis when he committed his crimes. But Dr. Stone, like the jury, is not convinced.
Shawcross does not come across to me as lastingly psychotic.
Dr. Stone also takes another factor into account before